All right, welcome back everyone to Jface Games. Today we are going to be talking about a resolution system. And just to make sure I get the hook in, for those that don't know the pressure system, which was a game I was working on previously, and a system that I really enjoyed the resolution system to, I've got a little variation to that. And so this has been the topic of interest for me lately. So what I have been doing is we ran a playtest just last night of the system, and so I've got my playtest notes that I have. But one of the things I was doing was I was playing around with the pressure system. If you're not aware of what the pressure system is, it's the idea that zones of combat have a different degree of pressure. That pressure is represented by a die, right? So say it's this purple D8, right? In this scenario, this is the pressure of that zone. And the D6 in this scenario would be your capabilities, right? Previously, what it was is it in essence was like your skill in attacking. And there were different types of skills that you might have or attributes, and each one might have a different die. And what you would do is you would roll, and when you rolled, if you beat the pressure die, whatever the difference was, that was how much damage you did. It was an interesting concept. But it added some frustrations here and there, meaning that the damage was so variable, and sometimes it was very small, and it was incremental. And that wasn't the only issue. There was other issues with the system in general that I felt. But it was a really fun resolution system. People liked picking up the pressure die and picking up their stat and then rolling it. So, what's the variation I'm currently working on? Well, I really enjoyed the idea of rolling multiple dice for damage, right? So you roll like 2d6 because you get a nice bell curve and it feels good, or you 2d8 or 2d10, etc. So then it got me thinking, well, you're already rolling 2 dice with the pressure system. So the new mechanic conceptually is that same idea. I pick up a die. Right, and let's say that in this scenario, I pick up a D8. So we got 2D8. The one on the right is the pressure die. The one on the left is my die. Okay, so I've already got the math on how often this should beat this. What I don't have the math on yet is the damage output, because now the concept is if you roll and you beat the pressure die, you then add both together, and that is your damage. Right? So this would have been a successful hit and 9 damage. However, if you roll, and this is working out perfectly, if you roll and you don't beat the pressure die, then whatever your die is, that's your total damage. So this is an unfortunate scenario, but technically you can imagine there's a scenario where this is 12 damage. This one is, 12 damage. That would be 12 damage, but a lot of 12 here. If you imagine there's a scenario where like this, you roll less than, but you could get a 7 here. Technically, you roll 7 and 8, and you didn't hit, but you would still do 7 damage. So there's still damage accruing. You're still moving the needle. But I thought this is a new interesting sort of twist on it. However, this is where my brain is currently with this system, and really with resolution systems in general. It's the idea that the resolution system, like in D&D, it's rolling a D20, right? And a lot of games, it's very simplistic. And I think the reason a lot of games have a very simplistic resolution system is because then you can focus on how to manipulate that resolution system, and you can focus on the other stuff. I think the more complex your resolution system gets, the harder it is to do things to it, right? So now there's this question of, for me, if I like the idea of having skills, and I like the idea of having attributes, and I like the idea of having weapons that matter, how does all of that wrap into this pressure die? And there's some different concepts, right? There's the concept of who cares? It's all just the same resolution system, but maybe those things add flavor to it. Maybe your weapon gives you a knockback. Maybe it gives you a tag of some sort where it's like, if I've got a mace, I can do knockdowns. If I've got you could do that, right? As opposed to saying, oh, if you've got a dagger, it's less damage, and if you've got a two-handed maul, it's more damage. You could just say, look, we'll just add attributes to these. Who cares if it does more damage or less damage? You add attributes. Or you add pluses. If you're better at something, then no matter what, In this scenario, this would be, oh, I do 6 damage, but maybe it's 6 plus 2, right? Because you've got an attribute that adds damage after the resolution of this, right? So those are ways, and I think those are smooth, right? I think those are smooth. The other thing I've thought about is that instead of having these dice determined by, oh, what's the pressure? The pressure is a 10 because of the scenario, or because of the monster you're up against, or the pressure is a 4 because of the monster you're against, whatever. The other idea is you standardize the types of rolls, right? So it's like DCs, okay? So now what you say is that you say the monster or the difficulty is always a D6. But if it's a hard DC, or difficulty is always a D8, but if it's a hard DC, you're rolling a D6 against it. If it's a moderate DC, you're rolling a D8 against it. If it's an easy DC, you're rolling a D10 against it. So now there's context, right? Now you've got a scenario where it's DCs. I think that would work, especially in terms of simplifying things. However, I don't know if it's as fun if there's always a D8 on the table that's the pressure, the bad die you're rolling against, and you're changing your die, versus I like the concept of that scenario where all of a sudden there's a D12 on the board, and you're like, holy crap, that's awful. Also, one of the things in an early playtest of the pressure system that people really enjoyed was the idea of modifying the pressure die, being able to switch that D12 with a D6 or D8 because of things they did. That was exciting for them. So, anyways, we're back to the pressure system in a way. I might not be as much on zones as much as I used to be. I think I'm back a little bit to hex, or to squares, something about it. I still might put those squares within zones, and so you still might have squares to determine movement within a zone, but then that zone has its own pressure. So I'm considering that. And so that's where we're at the moment, and that's it. So please leave a bell. Or click the bell, leave a comment. Love to hear from you. Hit the subscribe button, and I hope to hear from you guys soon. I'm hopefully doing more playtests. So hopefully right now this information is up on my Obsidian. These were the 3 playtest characters I just kind of whipped together, and there's a lot of stuff that's probably not getting used anymore, but was just on there because what we did is we ended up having 3 different versions of the game that we play tested. We just did 3 back-to-back-to-back combats where, well, we did 2. We only got to 2 of them. But we did an expanded combat, which is the expanded rules, a hybrid combat, which is, in essence, the hybrid rules, where I changed the rules a little bit, and there's a very streamlined combat. And so I think the streamlined version is actually where I'm heading. We're going to play test that hopefully soon, hopefully Thursday. And I'll let you guys know, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. All right, see ya.